In 2020, we had the honor of witnessing the release of the first of 3 movies featuring the super-fast Blue Hedgehog, kicking off one of the greatest video game movie franchises of all time. But do you remember or at least notice all the Easter eggs and hidden details scattered throughout this amazing movie? For example, right in the opening scene, where we see our hero fleeing Robotnik through the streets of San Francisco, there's a moment when a big explosion occurs. If you pause at just the right time, you'll spot a street sign that reads Mega DR. At first glance, it might seem like just a random street name, but it's actually an awesome reference to the Mega Drive, the console released by Sega, Sonic's creator, back in 1988. This console was a game changer for Sega, playing a crucial role in their worldwide success and paving the way for Sonic to become a global icon just 3 years later. In other words, if it weren't for this incredible console, we might never have had the chance to enjoy the 3 sensational movies that followed in the last few years. So thank you, Sega, for the Mega Drive. You're awesome. This is just the first of 24 details from Sonic the movie that you probably didn't catch when you first watched it in 2020. Get ready for an explosion of Easter eggs coming your way. Moving forward in the movie, inside Sonic's little hideout, we see him holding a map with possible worlds where he could escape if needed. If you look closely, in the center of the map, there's an island that looks identical to Green Hill Zone from the 1991 classic Sonic game. In fact, the name of the quiet town where Sonic lives in the movie, where he sort of shares his life with Tom and Maddie without them even knowing, also comes directly from this iconic game level. One of Sonic's favorite pastimes is secretly watching Saturday night movies with Tom and Maddie. One of these movies is none other than Speed. Seriously, could it be more fitting? A movie about a vehicle that can't stop, just like Sonic, who is literally unstoppable. Interestingly, even if it wasn't intentional, this nod to Keanu Reeves, who stars in Speed, becomes an incredible Easter egg for Sonic 3, where Reeves voices none other than Shadow. Now that's what I call long-term planning. But what if we told you that this isn't the only reference involving the Hollywood superstar who voices Shadow? Would you believe it? When Sonic is playing ping pong against himself, he makes a hand gesture that is unmistakably iconic. It's a clear nod to The Matrix, where Morpheus makes the same gesture. And who stars in that movie? Keanu Reeves, of course. Honestly, Sonic nailed it when he said Reeves is a national treasure. Back to the map, there are even more cool things hidden in it. For example, right above the image of Green Hill Zone, there's a symbol that's none other than the logo for the Sega Saturn. If you're younger, you're probably wondering, what's that? The Sega Saturn was the console that came after the Mega Drive, which we mentioned earlier. Released in 1994, it didn't quite achieve the same level of success as its predecessor, but it's still a piece of gaming history. Still in Sonic's cave, there's another hidden gem. While he's messing around with nunchakus, you can spot a poster in the background of the world's fastest man in the early 2000s. This Jamaican sprinter seems to be an inspiration for our Blue Hedgehog, which makes perfect sense. Both are naturally gifted speedsters. If you're as big of a Sonic fan as we are, whether it's the games or the movies, drop a comment below saying Sonic to show your support. Talking about the scene where Sonic pretends to be a karate master, you can see he's wearing a white headband. The coolest part? The symbol in the center of the headband is the exact same one that appeared in the opening of the very first Sonic game from 1991. As if that wasn't enough, our Blue Hedgehog has an amazing collection of magazines dedicated to one of DC's greatest superheroes, The Flash. Once again, this makes perfect sense. Speaking of superheroes and superpowered individuals, the ping pong scene where Sonic plays against himself is strongly reminiscent of a similar moment with Quicksilver in the X-Men movies. Quicksilver, of course, is another iconic speedster from the world of comics and movies. This reference fits perfectly. It makes you wonder, if there were a race between all these speedsters, who would win? It seems like the Sonic team decided to pay tribute to every major speedster from cartoons and comics. Inside Sonic's hideout, there's a sign that reads Roadrunner. This is a clear nod to none other than the fastest character from Looney Tunes, Roadrunner. It's a subtle reference, but undeniably awesome. Returning to the ping pong scene, there are even more incredible Easter eggs to discover. For example, there's another sign that reads ND4SPD. This is undoubtedly a reference to the video game Need for Speed, a series centered on high-speed car racing. Obviously, this ties in perfectly with Sonic's theme of speed. Additionally, behind Sonic, you can see the word Chevrolet. This is no coincidence. Chevrolet launched a car in 2012 called, you guessed it, Sonic. This Easter egg was absolutely brilliant. In the same scene, next to Sonic, you can spot a vinyl record by Van Halen, further proving that the Blue Hedgehog has a refined taste in music. Guitars seem to be Sonic's favorite instrument, and Van Halen's legendary riffs make for a perfect choice. Switching gears to the quirky residents of Green Hill, we have to mention the moment when Crazy Carl shows everyone at the cafe his drawing of Sonic. It's a clear nod to the internet meme. Sonic, this was a clever and hilarious touch. If you're enjoying the video, do a good deed and subscribe to our channel so we can keep creating awesome content like this. In addition, Crazy Carl calls our hero the Blue Devil, which is the exact same name as the car used by Metal Sonic in the racing games from the franchise. Could this be a hint? 2 movies in advance that we'll see Metal Sonic in the upcoming films, just like what happened with Keanu Reeves. Now that's what we call mind-blowing planning. At the start of the movie, we see young Sonic bringing a flower that looks like a sunflower, but isn't, to his adoptive mother, Longclaw. This choice of flower isn't random. It's the same flower that appears in the Green Hill Zone level from the first Sonic game, which we already mentioned earlier as the namesake for Tom and Maddie's town. And that's not the only time this flower appears appears in the first Sonic movie. When Sonic accidentally causes a power outage across the town, Tom talks to his assistant, and we can spot the flower again, this time behind one of the stained glass windows in the Green Hill police station. This shows that the town's design and aesthetic are deeply tied to the game's Green Hill zone. Speaking of the Green Hill police station, when we see Wade sitting in his chair, if we look at the bulletin board, we can spot a small thank you poster addressed to Tom and his team. The coolest part? The poster features a little yellow duck, reminding us of the scene where Tom helps the mama duck, whom he calls Donald and Daisy. Could it be that one of the ducklings drew this thank you note for the sheriff of Green Hill? By the way, you probably noticed that the names Tom gives to the ducks are a clear reference to Disney's famous duck duo, Donald and Daisy, right? Just to clarify though, we couldn't resist pointing it out anyway. When Wade picks up a call from Tom, the two start chatting, and the sheriff's assistant mentions that Eggman's team looks like the Men in Black. But the fun part is that, as the group leaves, Wade asks if they're going to erase his memory or something.
No one's gonna erase my memory here?
This is a clear nod to how the MIB always erase people's memories when they see or learn things they shouldn't. After the bar fight, when Tom and Sonic go to a roadside motel, we see Sonic moving incredibly fast, doing multiple things at once, so fast that it's hard to keep up. But if you slow the movie down, you'll notice that on the TV, they're playing scenes from Go for Broke, an animated short about a rodent who has terrible luck trying to grab food from a truck on the road. This detail is extra special because Jeff Fowler, the genius behind directing all 3 Sonic movies, also worked on this animation early in his career as an animator for Sonic games. It might not be a direct Easter egg, but it's a fantastic curiosity that shows how much Fowler loves this franchise, just like us. To wrap up our list, when Robotnik is experimenting with Sonic's energized quill in his mobile lab during a power outage, he flips the circuit breaker back on, and we see some interesting stickers. One says Evil Lab, which fits Robotnik perfectly, while another reads Badniks, the term used in the Sonic games to describe the enemies Sonic faces in most of his adventures. The Sonic trilogy is definitely one of the all-time favorites for gaming fans like us. And if you love everything about pop culture, check out the 2 video options on your screen. You can watch either one, and we promise you'll love them.